we would have to consider.
Good morning.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
The future. He came from the future. And so do I.
But you said that he wasn't human, that he was some other kind of being.
Another world and another time.
Your papers, please.
After he's talked, we must get rid of him immediately.
So you found us.
What is it trying to tell us?
No strings, no catch. You own everything.
Now stay tuned to ROCKFLUX.
Oh, no!
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale. I'm David, son of a bitch.
Thank you very much, my specimens in this experiment on life and torture. The future that never came. The future that never came. What did they, right?
The future. He came from the future.
You gotta love that, right? I got guitar picks falling down. All kinds of stuff. I did an experiment yesterday. This chair. Oh, this. Let's look at this closely. Look how thick. Now listen here. You hear how thick and heavy duty this thing is? This is this like by that company. It's like rubber in a can. You lying Saka. You know what? Okay? We'll get into the real words later, undoubtedly. How thick that is. So there's two things about this. Two things. One is, the idea of this fraudulent packaging, bull crap, right? Where they would put tape on this, and then, of course, they cover the tops and bottoms, too, so you can't see it. So you think you're buying some giant roll of tape, when inside you get a couple of feet. And you say, a couple of feet, that's pretty big. No, not when you're trying to patch a frickin' roof or patch something, right? This thing here could be about this big, in other words, about a third to a quarter the size of this thing. Right? I wonder what would happen if I put that on the microphone. He came from the future. No, this is honey pie. My position is tragic. Won't you cross the Atlantic? And won't you please come home? Or that Winchester Cathedral, you're bringing me down. But instead of that being used, I just had to pull off the tape on there. Well, anyway, so because this is so heavy, I decided to put this underneath the chair. Remember I tell you this chair keeps sinking. It's the ever-sinking chair, which makes me the ever-sinking man. I can't even align myself properly, in the sweet spot. Right? Where I'm talking in the microphone, everything's fine, copacetic, as they say. Yeah, just an example. The future that never came. And it's like the title of this show. Not that. I don't know what that is. The title of this show, we are being deceived and manipulated. And believe me, it's not about advertising. It's way beyond some stupid piece of cardboard, heavy-duty cardboard. Everything you know is wrong is what I put in the chat. Okay? We are being deceived and manipulated. It's the 7th of February, 2022, if you believe that. Who even knows what year it is, right? Everything you know is wrong. Camera 2 has gone blank. Apparently. Let me see here. No, it hasn't. The outside. What's going on there? Camera 2. Something happened to camera 2. And I'm not sure what. It's as if it got disconnected, but it can't be because, let's see. Oh. It's showing here. There we go. What was that? That was really weird. It's like some girl I used to work with at some newspaper one time. She used to say, "That's weird." It's a little bit crooked now. The pole. Sorry for silence in the beginning of the show, but camera 2 has become a regular fixture of this program. I've got my bulletproof coffee and I put extra butter in it this time. To see what it's going to do to the taste and the gallbladder. Not that I would recommend excess fat for someone having some kind of issue. Everybody's got a solution. Everybody's got health advice for you, don't they? Right? Everybody. The internet's full of it. And when I say the internet's full of it, I mean the internet is full of it, full of it, full of it. Right? The world is ending. So, the future that never came. This is on the screen we're looking at a picture of a 1960s World's Fair. I believe this was like a New York City. I'm trying to preserve my privacy. Did I move that? God. See, I have this thing set up, which is basically 4 of those glass cubes as I go rocking on this chair that faces the area where the camera view is so that people on the outside can't see in, here, walking by. Curiosity seekers, because people are like, what's he doing? Who is that? There's lights in there. What's going on in there? What are they doing? Right? We have a right to know. That was a line from a Tom Waits song I talked about yesterday, a different one. What's he building inside there? We have a right to know. Slurp. You don't have a right to know. That's one thing you don't have. That's one right you don't have. I don't think you have any rights, really. I mean, rights, your rights are, it's like natural law of, the universe. So-called God-given rights, so to speak. Like I always say, freedom is freedom. Is not a matter if we don't need some people in some congressional, body wearing business, some kind of uniform, the business suit, the Beau Brummel. That was the Beau Brummel, they call that. People don't know what that is. Look at those trucks go. Fueling that coal, taking that coal to the electric plant so you could drive your Tesla vehicle, your electric car. Your electric car that runs on coal and natural gas that was fracked. And you don't even know that. All right, let's just not repeat the past. Let's move to the future. Because why would we want to do something like that,
The future. He came from the future.
Why would we want to do that? Well, one time I explained time. I don't know if you recall that or not. And I tried to explain that time was not linear time. First of all, Einstein was wrong about practically everything he said. People hate that. Tesla, he laughed at Einstein. All right. But, yeah, he had it way wrong. And I told you about space-time. They're not connected. They're not interconnected. It's impossible. It's like a bowling ball on a mattress. That's Einstein, It's like, okay, well, what's on the other side of this indentation of your so-called gravity? It's magnetic fields that holds the human body together. You're a collection of cells with motors in them. Where does motors come from? Right? Never thought about that, did you either? Everything you know is wrong, for crying out loud. So my computer was on when I came downstairs. I sleep upstairs. I come downstairs. I go upstairs around 3 o'clock in the afternoon many times, most days, because I have my living quarters and bedroom upstairs. This downstairs is a kitchen bar over to the one side, and then this small front studio office. That's how I have the camera looking out at the snowpack that's still out there, right? And so I don't come back down. But when I before I went upstairs, I turned the computer off. I have because it's a smaller device, I don't have to get into it. I have a USB fan, a small USB fan at the back of my computer, just to keep it extra cool. Because sometimes doing these types of things, I push, you push the CPU. The secret with computers is you got to keep them cooled down if you want to get life out of them. Fan stopped, meaning computer was off, everything's fine. And so somehow in the middle of the night, my computer started up. I came down this morning, my computer was on. And there was some error message, the usual thing. Do you want to report, your computer did not properly shut down? Well, I don't care if it properly shut down or not. I didn't give you permission to start it back up. I did get a weird, funky email yesterday, but I don't see how that could have anything to do with anything. So, my computer was on all night on the internet, potentially. So, what was hacked? Who's hacked? NSA. Did I say something? CIA, right? They're trying to go into my computer and erase the evidence that the CIA killed Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King was killed by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. You're saying, I'm turning this show off, this tinfoil hat crackpot. No. It's the future that never came. All right? And, some of these things are repetitive. Some of these things are non-repetitive. I don't think this thing matters. I had that thing sitting over there. I mean, in one regard, you've got things that you've heard me talk about before. And that's recently perhaps more so, that our life expectancy has dropped by almost 2 years, according to the CDC. Right? And this is in the year 2022. We've had some kind of like flu bug that's been hanging around for a couple of years now. It's the year 2022. All right. And people are just accepting it. Oh, well, this is novel. No, it's not a novel. A novel is a frickin' book. I don't have one real handy enough for me to grab. You know, but I should. I should have one of everything. A novel is a book somebody wrote, fictional novel. All right? This show's starting late. It's 5:51 a.m. Eastern time. It's almost 6 o'clock. I'm going to be supposedly going somewhere today to pick up some stuff. I've got to try to shore up my attic again because I can't have that drip, drip, drip. The weather forecast has been calling for a, let's see if it changes, if anything drastic, if it's gotten crazier. Yes, tomorrow was supposed to be like just sunny or cloud overcast. Now they're saying it's a 40% chance of snow. Watch that snow tomorrow morning turn into rain. I'll be screwed. Wednesday is supposed to be thunderstorms. Now that's partly cloudy, and then Thursday snow. So I don't know what the fuck's going on. Sorry for the F, but I mean, come on. But today, at least so far, it's still holding out. It's 21 degrees outside the studio right now, and it's going to get up to 43. So I'm figuring my attic will probably be at least 50, which is a good enough temperature to apply any sort of materials. You know, usually it's like don't do this below 50 or so. And, well, it'll even be above 50 up there. So I don't know if I'm going to put some more of that spray, liquid rubber, if I actually might get another version of this fraudulent stuff. It's not so much that it's fraudulent, it's just that it's a con job. You'd think by now they wouldn't be saying things like, describing a monitor or a TV in diagonal width, right? Instead of just telling you how wide the monitor is. Because obviously if you take the diagonal, it's like bigger. Everything you know is wrong. We've cured all sorts of unbelievable, debilitating diseases that have been, insanely communicable in the past. But in the year 2022, no can do. And oddly enough, we didn't have big pharma back then. Somebody making hundreds of billions of dollars to keep it alive. Or the bioweapon concept, right? Couple years taken off our life. The future that never came, right? Bioweapons and or, bugs that, I don't know. They don't want to give you a cure for it. Technology, my computer starts up. You can't turn your computer off. You got to get a new operating system every 18 months. It's not Moore's Law. It's the complete opposite of Moore's Law, right? Moore's Law was the idea that every 18 months or 2 years or something along those lines, and this goes way back, by the way, too. This is not some even decades old. This is really old, and it was true for decades. Was that every 2 years approximately, the size of the chip would shrink down, the processing power would increase, and the price would go down. So these things would become affordable. And in the early days, it was true, you'd have computers that only universities or DARPA, or these defense contractors had, giant, room-filled computers. Like in the time, like that show, Time Travel, where they traveled in time. What was that show called? I forget what it was called. Time, something.
The future. He came from the future.
I think I'll torment you with that today. The time tunnel. Time tunnel. Yeah, that was it. I have 2 episodes of the time tunnel in my Apple TV app, I think. Where is my Apple TV app? Oh, there it is. See, now this is why I have a CPU, like a fan. I'm going to try opening the Apple TV app and see if that, like, if my CPU can handle it. If it can't, like, it's already going up and the app hasn't even opened yet. But if I'm just 10 CPUs, yeah, it's shooting up way up. Let's see. Library. And where are all my TV shows? I think it's I read something about this. In other words, I think Apple has basically taken my library. Wait, let's see. Oh no, here we go. These would have been shows in the early days that I bought because I was traveling somewhere and I wanted to I'm going to try to show you this just for the sake of it. You know, we're just having fun. I'm rewatching Fringe. Apparently, I have 3 episodes of Fringe on here. Legion, that was a pretty cool show. Did you ever see that one? And I was watching this show, Devs. That was on Hulu. I don't know if that's continued. That thing Lights Out. I didn't really watch that. Or New Girl. They were like throwing some things in here sometimes at you. Mr. Robot was frickin' great. The Circle Game wasn't one I was watching. Star Trek, of course. In other words, if you wanted to take something with you, but here's the thing. Continuum, somehow they vanished. Like, why is that gone? Free Agents and Mad Men, like there's no images here. And where's the Time Tunnel? I had 2 issues of the Time Tunnel. And they're gone. Star Trek, the original series, remastered. Okay. That's interesting. Downloaded. Hunger Games. Those bastards. Okay, so these are my own videos I've made. Sci-fi fantasy. Now here it is. That for some reason it's showing up here. Here's the time tunnel. Let's see. It's on the cloud. Let's see if we play a second of this. I don't know if you'll be able to hear the audio on this or not, but just so that you get the concept of it. This is an old show from like the 60s or early 70s, Time Tunnel. Yes, it's still black on my computer too, but let's see what happens. It might be downloading it from... I don't see anything happening. It's not showing it. This bastard. All right. Well, that supports my whole theory. So let's add that to the list. The future that never came. It's the year 2022, and Apple has like taken the time tunnel away from me. I paid for it. It's like Adobe stole Photoshop and InDesign from me, right? And PDF Pro and stuff like that. I paid for it, owned it, got the box, right? Paid for an upgrade somewhere along the line. But then they switched to this Creative Cloud. That's what's going on with that Apple TV thing. There was a little cloud thing there. I probably needed to click on the cloud and sit here and wait for it to download from the cloud or some fucked up thing like that. All right. So let's, are you keeping tally of this stuff? It's the year 2022. Coincidentally, 22, there's a 2 there. This is the second month, right, of 2022. And 2 years has been taken from your life expectancy. The shows you paid for on Apple TV and maybe other things vanish. Willy-nilly, they decide. They don't care if you paid for it and you own it. You see, like you own it. Somewhere, I guess, in that small terms of service, like I say, the Constitution giveth and the terms of service taketh away. So they stole my TV show that I downloaded. Right? What if I was going to have date night? And I said, come on over, man. I got 2 episodes of the old Time Tunnel show. It'll be a real trip. Let's cook something up. I'll cook up something really weird, some crazy 60s fondue and stuff, and let's watch Time Tunnel tonight, right? We sit down, get ready to do it with our little fondue set up. I turn it on and it's gone, right? Or the same person calls me and says, I can't come down. I think I caught that thing that's been around for a couple of years, right? That they're making hundreds of billions of dollars on, but they're not in no hurry to kick it. But I got a smartphone with all kinds of apps on it. Like they used to say in the 70s or 80s, big whoop. They tried fixing my street, and all I know is my house is shaking and cracking. I had to replace tile in my bathroom yesterday or 2 days ago because it was cracked from the shaking. And no, there's nobody to sue. You can't go up against, it's like you say, you can't fight City Hall. You can't sue big utility companies and stuff because they have too many lawyers. In other words, the cost of the lawsuit way outweighs the amount of money it would cost you to even go visit a lawyer. All right? And organizations like the ACLU and these other law firms that used to, come to the defense of, the defenseless, so to speak, they've all now become political entities. It's the year 2022, right? It's it just gets more and more absurd, right?
The future. He came from the future.
Yeah. Came from the future. The future that never came, man. There's a truck. And so some hacker last night probably turned on my computer remotely. Right, this is the stuff. I mean, I could go in and do things and figure all this shit out. And that's another thing that you shouldn't have to do in the future. And somehow hacked into that camera as if they were discovering something, looking for something. Some perv thought it might have been a nanny camera. It was a USB camera or something. Right? The year 2022. Right? In the year 2022, you buy a major appliance and you're lucky if it lasts 5 years. Right? I stayed in apartments, right, where I had refrigerators that were 40 years old and still working. You see this phone back here? Hello? That thing's 50, 60 years old, still works. I was just thinking about it because I have the jack up, the plug-in jack for it in my bedroom. And I was thinking I'd take it upstairs. I'm using it here just as a set piece, for visual effects. But I think I'm going to change this whole thing sometime this spring. That phone never stopped working. Right? Year 2022, have you bought a phone? How many phones have you bought? I'm not talking about even smartphones. That whole idea I started, I was talking about Moore's Law. Things have gotten more and more expensive. Oh, yeah, but what about that new Apple A1 chip and all these chips and stuff and AI and GPT-3 and all that stuff, man? It's garbage. Have you tried talking to Alexa or your Echo Dot or Cortana or any of these things? They're morons. And you know what they're hooked up to? Things like Wikipedia. And you know what Wikipedia is in the year 2022? It's revisionary history. They change it for political purposes or some kind of weird warped narrative. People have, and you say, nah, you're crazy. No. Because I've done it myself. I've screen captured results, right? Or printed out a result. Because I've been doing these shows for over 20 some years. And I've printed out results and I've watched things change. They'll change things on a daily basis. If they want to justify a news story against one of their opponents, right? A political or ideological opponent, right? They'll go in and they'll alter their Wikipedia page. So it's not an encyclopedia. So take this as a warning. If you really want to know something, go to Encyclopedia Britannica. Or you know what? Better yet, try to buy yourself or go. So a lot of times they have these book sales in cities once a year or something, or they have an old bookstore or something. Buy yourself the ideal would be to have Encyclopedia Britannica. They were the best. That's the gold standard of encyclopedias. But you can get some of these, semi-smaller versions like the Funk and Wagnalls and some of those other ones, right? But the fact of the matter is there are certain things that, use the word fact twice in the same paragraph. There are certain facts that are facts. Like I say, there are not two sides to every story. The media loves to do that. They like to say things like they're fair and balanced. No. Some things are just things. There isn't another side of the story. And it's funny, these same people that pretend there's two sides to a story, right? And we're going to fair and balance, are the exact same people that won't give you, when there's an event that goes against their narrative or a perpetrator who is not fit the profile of something they're pushing. They won't report that story or show the picture of that person because that would make their narrative not strong. It would water it down or actually make them look like, what they really are. The media particularly. It's all hypocrisy for profit. They claim to have some kind of moral standards, but their own behavior doesn't conform to it. It's all pretense. Right? It's the year 2022. Okay? Right?
The future. He came from the future.
Yeah. I don't know about that, man. Year 2022, and they revise history, and the online encyclopedia, so-called encyclopedia, Wikipedia, the people's pedia, whatever. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. You can't trust it. Particularly when you're looking up people and things like that. The media lies, right? It's the future, but the media tells you lies. Got people come out, science, the basic precept, the foundation, okay, of the concept of science, the scientific method, right, is the idea of duplicating, a result somewhere else. Questioning, someone comes up with a hypothesis, right? Sometimes just even an idea or a statement. And then they put it out to what we used to call the scientific community, And so everyone would basically part of the whole process, the scientific method process, was for the scientific community to argue, discuss, question, try to poke holes through this statement, this idea, this hypothesis that someone came up with. And if it stood the test of that and the test of time and was reproducible and all of that other jazz, that people who really know science know what I'm talking about, then it may, start appearing in scientific papers. It may become a theory. All right? But today, if someone says something and you question it, what was that guy that frickin' liar guy? I used guy's name begins with an F. Fucking liar says fucking fraud. You're by questioning me, you're questioning science, or you're. The fuck are you talking about, man? All right? That's what science is all about. Science is about questioning it. Yeah, you have to. The only way you prove something is you don't just make a statement and say I'm a scientist, so you can't question this. No, you certainly can question it. People are still I opened it up by saying Einstein was full of shit. The fact of the matter is Tesla thought he was full of shit. You don't believe me? Go read some of Tesla's writings. Tesla was a genius. The reason you are watching me, if your computer is plugged into the wall, getting AC current over a grid, power grid or something like that, alternating current, that's not because of that jackass Edison, who was electrifying elephants on stage, right, to prove his DC current, which was useless. It only was good for a couple of blocks or something. That's because of Tesla. Your remote control to your TV and your drones and all that kind of stuff, that's Tesla technology, man. Right? The real Tesla, not Elon Musk. I'm so tired of that. You say that, you'd be surprised. People think Tesla. No, his name is Elon Musk. He has a car company called Tesla. And his cars run on coal and natural gas. Most of the natural gas that a Tesla runs on is fracked. Yeah, but I filled it up at a Tesla charging station. Yeah, where do you think the juice, the electricity came from? And by the way, it was the original Tesla who had the alternating current that was able to bring that coal generated electricity and fracked gas electricity to that Tesla thing. No, it's Elon Musk, man. PayPal guy. That's right. He's the PayPal guy. He was the guy. He's the guy who made money on PayPal. He's not going to Mars. He's not going to Mars. People are so whacked out of their mind, right? Everything you know is wrong, and you don't know what you don't know. Get the shirt. It's available. Tony Caravan Live, ROCKFLUX.com. Get the frickin' shirt, for crying out loud.
The future. He came from the future.
The future never came, man. I really wish I could. You see this wire? It's just like strangling me and bothering my arm. But I can't use Bluetooth headphones because they would probably cause a hum or something. The future in this particular getup. Yesterday I hooked up the reverb system. I got it working. I did a video on locals, but then I took it down. Can't even get a decent reverb. It was echo, but no reverb. I wanted the big sound of the Boss Jocks of the 60s. Didn't work out. It really sucked, you know. Craziness.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
But the list goes on, you know. And you're what? Mesmerized by apps on a phone. It hasn't changed since Steve Jobs brought it out. Right? He's got this big giant square camera with all kinds of holes on it, you know, lenses and stuff. And I mean, come on. You know, where's the where's the just do this kind of, you know, holographic stuff and all that stuff? Because the kids who are making 6 and 7 figures working for these freaking big tech companies, they don't know how to write that code. They're just fiddling with a device that, you know, other people made. Look at those trucks feeding those Tesla vehicles. That's all coal going to an electric plant, power plant. Everything you know is wrong. That's why I was concerned when camera 2 wasn't working. HBO hat. Matrix. So future never came. And it's just in time for the end of the world. I mean, we're going to hell in a handbasket, basically, as they say, right? I mean, up the legendary tributary without any means of transportation. That was some like grade school teacher used to say that I had. You're going down the legendary tributary with no means of transportation. Yeah, it's pretty nuts when you think about it. Yeah. Nobody watches this station because they don't want to hear the truth, even though...
The only station that matters.
Yeah, that's the fact, Jack. So, no, we didn't build these futuristic cities as depicted in this title card here on the screen and on YouTube as a thumbnail, I guess they call it there. So they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You know, they didn't understand that concept of the geodesic dome. You know, only people like Disney. But I understand that they actually, Epcot Center took that thing down. So I heard. I may be wrong on that, but, you know, because I guess they didn't want people to see that, you know, the future, right? What people thought the future could be like 60 years ago or 50 years ago or whatever. You know, because we live in this, like, you know, just think about it. You know, it's the year 2022, and if you drive in a car and you go places, there's potholes. Yet I didn't work. Well, I worked there too because I had a job while I was going to college. But one of the colleges I went to, I was 2 different schools, had a row out, because they had all kinds of neat stuff. They had ag experiments. They had their own ice cream factory. I mean, meteorology, they were the school that created meteorology, so you may know who I'm talking about. But, but they also, there was this area out there because they had so much land out, where they were. And there was this out in the middle of nowhere, there's this big road. It was like almost like a racetrack, like a big racetrack. It almost looked like, but it wasn't like, whatever. And what they did there was they were testing different types of surfaces for highways and roads and streets and things like that. And I remember, I had some girlfriend in college, and the whole idea is when you're young and in love and all that stuff, you go for walks, right? Let's go for a walk, right? I don't know. And I remember a couple times we ended up out there, just going out for a walk together, togetherness. And I remember going there and being there a couple of times, or at least once, but I think it was more than one, I think at least twice, when there were people and other students out there doing stuff, right? And I remember the first time saying, "Hey, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing, man?" Right? Because here's this it's just like this road to nowhere, and these people there, and the road was like different colors, it was weird, and they were driving, and there was things. There was one, I remember one time going out that we just walked right by it because it was a nice spot. There used to be all these she was in the there was like fields of flowers out there and stuff in the springtime and stuff. And so she used to like to go out. So I remember walking out there one time. And we were just walking by the place, more or less. And there was a car that was just going around this thing. And that's all it was doing, was driving this. And it wasn't a small area. It was a pretty decent sized area. And, and I thought, wow, that's an interesting job, or student internship or whatever it was. But the idea was they didn't have self-driving cars or have the drone thing. This is, 30, 40 years ago. I look that old. And anyway, so somebody was sitting there literally driving this thing for like 8 hours. And I guess they would, I don't know how many hours, maybe 4-hour shifts. I have no idea. But I know that they were driving there, and and so they would probably switch shifts and someone else would keep driving. And the whole idea was to test, because I had found that out the time we talked to these people, like, hey man, what are you guys doing? Right? And they told us, and they said, we're experimenting with different kinds of road surfaces to see which road surfaces, right, last the longest, are the more durable, the least likely to, develop potholes, handle like they do this year round. And they truly do get the 4 seasons up there. The ground freezes, thick, and the sun beats down really hot in the summertime, that whole thing. You get it was in a 4 seasons area. And so we're testing all these things, and it's, and that's their people. And there are people probably getting their, probably PhD students, writing papers on this thing type of stuff, which you could probably find places. Well, to make a long story short, they had some amazing discoveries out there, that of road surfaces that were basically, were almost, indestructible, right? And the idea was to find something that was virtually indestructible, meaning it would last for decades, so you wouldn't have to have this constant thing. I once talked to a guy, PennDOT, and they had a press release that said PennDOT, like these dots, Department of Transportations, okay, they call it dots, that they had an ongoing process or program of repairing roads, meaning they started at one part of the state, and by the time they got to the other side of the state, the roads on the other side needed to be repaired. So it was a never-ending job, right? Which is pitiful. And what these guys were developing prior to that Department of Transportation memo, press release, or what some spokesperson said, they had developed stuff that would not have been a problem. And one of the key elements that when I was talking with these guys at the time, I remember this because it was all fascinating to me, that cost factor was in there. Because some people are saying, well, yeah, you could probably build something that's fantastic, right? But it would cost, it's beyond practicality as far as the cost would be. And it wasn't the case. In fact, one of the strongest surfaces that they had found was very inexpensive. So it all has to do with chemistry and stuff, When I was a kid, there used to be a store called Town and Country. All right? This was before malls. That store was put out of business when they built the mall right up the road from it in my hometown. They built a mall, the first mall, when I was in I don't know how old I was, in our area. But before that, they used to have these shopping plazas. They still have shopping plazas. In fact, the malls have died and the plazas have come back to life, or the plazas still exist now, right? People are more rather be outside than in the comfort of an air-conditioned or heated mall. It's weird, bizarre, right? Makes no sense whatsoever. But don't expect logic in the year 2022. Bulletproof coffee. Put a bigger stick of butter in there. Did I say that before? I mean, not a stick of butter, but I mean, quarter of a teaspoon, half a teaspoon, something like that. Just a little bit more. Before I was putting just a dab. Thought I'd put some more. It's smoothing it out. But it's not necessarily like making it have a particular flavor, and it's almost losing its coffee flavor, right? Because it's just like a mellow, warm drink almost. So I don't know. I might have to experiment with this a little bit. And I don't like to put creamers or things like that. I certainly don't put sugar and stuff. So I may not even do this anymore. But in this plaza, there was this place called Town and Country. And it was cheap stuff. It was it would be like going early days of Walmart, I guess, in a sense, but it wasn't a Walmart. But the point is, a family could go in there and buy stuff, and it was very inexpensive. And they used to have these sneakers there, because I remember them. And so I remember my mother buying me a pair of these sneakers. And the bottoms of them didn't look like traditional sneakers. It was like a mishmash of if you melted a bunch of rubber bands together. All right. But I mean, it was a flat surface. So when you're walking, you just felt, whatever. Normal, like walking in any pair of sneakers. But if you looked at it, that's what it reminded me of. It was almost like a million rubber bands melted or something. So obviously some chemist, and some somewhere, over the rainbow, had figured out some kind of process using some sort of, I don't know, polymers of some kind. I don't know what. Anyway, in those days, the top of your shoe, in other words, the canvas, and they used to make shoes out of like canvas and stuff, not like these fake materials and stuff now. Or real leather or something. Oh, by the way, these shoes cost like, $9.95 or something like that. That was the gag about it. Wasn't it? This wasn't some expensive shoes. That's why I still buy. In fact, the shoes I'm wearing right now, I think I only paid $10 or $12 for at Walmart. But they don't have those bottoms. Those bottoms have vanished from the face of the earth, as far as I know. And so the thing was, the top of your shoe would wear out before the bottom would. And kids with shoes, you'd always end up getting a hole like towards the front of your shoe, where water would be leaking in or something on a traditional shoe. Happens today as an adult, right? You almost have, if you're a decent walker, and it doesn't matter how much money you spend on shoes, forget about the $10 shoes. You can have, the $80 shoe or whatever. $69.95. It's the year 2022, and we still do that. It price things $95, $9.95. Here's the diagonal length of your TV, right? Fake. We got to like put something in something like this, make it look like you're getting a big, thick roll of something, but it's basically hollow. And you get, this tiny roll of tape packaging. No, you could be one of those kids that like, drags your feet on the cement concrete all the way to school. And we used to walk over a mile of school every day. Really did. You could be the roughest, and toughest person on shoes. And the top of your shoe would wear out before the bottom. The bottoms never wore out. So they had to get rid of that. It's the year 2022, and our shoes wear out. Our soles of our shoes wear out. Our refrigerators stop working. Our cars have all kinds of problems, right? You can't fix your car, right? Certain things you can't do to your car. You can't open the hood and fix certain things because it's like circuit board here, circuit board there. I was with somebody the other day in their car, and they had the key set. It doesn't have a key like traditional. You stick a key in a hole type of thing. You just press this. You put this key set in, in the car. You probably know what I'm talking about. I don't drive anymore. I gave up on that. I have no need to. And so they were pushing the button, and it was saying key fob. I think that's what they call it, fob. Key fob not present or something weird like that. They were getting an error. Right? And so they were going about a bunch of different ways, and then you finally got the car started. But basically, with this electronic starter based on this key fob thing. I think that's what they called it. There's nothing you can frickin' do. If the battery was dead in your key fob and you didn't have that specific kind of battery or whatever or something. And it turned out that's what it was. They put in an extra thing. And you can get a manual key thing installed, but it's not like, it doesn't come in. It's one of those add-ons. And probably to have one put in, it's probably one of those $300-$400 deals, right? It's like, everything's a ripoff. So you can't start your frickin' car. Or a circuit thing goes down and your dashboard doesn't work or something weird like that. It's like there's no analog. See, it used to be a thing, the joke used to be about building a better mousetrap. And the whole punchline on that, kind of, was that you can't build a better mousetrap. Certain things just worked better, right? Or just worked. And so what happened was, over the march of time, the corporatocracy, as they got more and more power over top of us, they started, to push this planned obsolescence into every possible thing they could, whether it was a shoe, the sole of a shoe, the bottom of a shoe, whether it was a refrigerator, an automobile, computers, certainly smartphones, right? Every 18 months, actually every year, Apple has their Apple event and everybody wants to buy the new phone. And, the technology that they had, they're always 5-10 years ahead. I know that from being involved in tech. All right. And that's old news to anybody who understands technology and industry. Back in the days of Xerox, remember the Apple computer, the Mac, came out as Xerox PARC project in the 60s, right? Both Steve Jobs and Gates actually were present, had toured that facility where they had the mouse and the graphical user interface, which I call the GUI. People call it the GUI. In other words, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, right? And yeah, it's pathetic. So the systematic through time, in other words, all of these things you think are new are old. Nothing's new under the sun, I think is the expression, or something like that. And like I was talking about time when I once did that show where I explained time is not linear, it's more circular, right? It's that part, that thing that people just can't seem to grasp,
The future. He came from the future.
And that whole idea was, and I'll flash it for you real quick because I still have yet to move it from cardboard, is that instead of the past going towards the future in linear time like it shows at the top, time actually exists more like a clock, actually. In fact, the face of a clock. And you can see it's an XY axis. And so if the future is at the top, the past is at the bottom, right? That everything exists in the now on this XY plane. And if you take that into 3D, 4D, 5D, or whatever, you could be anywhere, in time. So in effect, it is possible that
the future. He came from the future.
It is possible that he came from the future. It's interesting stuff. I did a show on that. You have to see me really get into it to explain it. That's one of those things Einstein was way off on, just like gravity. But the list goes on. Like I say, as you live your life, once you pass a certain point, and everything's cyclical. So it's not like you have to, it's like if you live a certain amount of years, you start to see repetitive cycles in everything. That's why I make such a big stink about the climate thing when I watch all these climate alarmists. I'm like, you don't understand. You just haven't lived long enough. Now, the old timers, whoever they are, these professors and stuff, they're being paid off or something. These UN guys, and that Klaus, whatever, Heil Klaus from the World Economic Forum, Well, they're just outright liars with pushing agendas, totalitarian and authoritarianism. They're pushing their agendas for global dominance and stuff. You know, they're megalomaniacs, you know, that kind of stuff. Narcissistic sociopaths, psychopaths. You know, that's whose that is. The corporatocracy is basically a collection of former nation states now ruled by an organized crime syndicate that meets at Davos every year. That's a mouthful, but, you know, rewind that, listen to it, and write it down word by word. Yeah, it's the truth. And so when you live long enough, you've seen enough nor'easters, you know. You've seen heat waves, right? You've seen it snow in May. You know, you've seen, you know, January thaws. Not this January. Man, it was a cold one. But you've seen those. I've seen them. Right? It's February 7th right now. And like today's going to be the first day we hit, I think yesterday we might have hit 40 or close to it. It was high 30s, but, you know, it's 21 degrees outside my studio right now. And yeah, it's supposed to hit 43 maybe as a high today, but the overnights are all going to be like right around freezing, and a lot of the days are going to be around freezing. So February's looking, you know, coming in. It's a classic winter. But like I say, you know, that's the way it was. If you live long enough, you've seen it before. It's cyclical. Like I said, women know all about cycles, right? We see the moon, the lunar cycle, solar cycles, right? The seasons, right? Everything's cyclical. And we have short cycles and we have long cycles, and we have things called grand cycles. You know, it's one big circular thing. That's the whole key to understanding everything. That's why I say about time. You know, it's all one big circular thing. And the concept is that if you consider the circular nature of time, which if you have an analog clock in your house, it's like right in your face, but you're just not understanding it. You're thinking, well, no, that's based on a sundial, and you don't get it. Well, yeah, everything is related to everything. That's the whole idea. But the idea is to take a cycle, if you're looking at a two-dimensional circular thing, right? Like a Kennedy $50, a guy who was killed by the CIA, okay? Because he wanted to put the CIA out of business, right? But if time is circular, okay? Well, this is a two-dimensional representation of it in effect. I mean, even though it's technically there's a side to it. There's three sides to a coin. You know, you got the front, back, and you know, the side. A lot of people don't think about that, the side of the coin. Heads or tails? I'll pick the side. You'd be right every time. But if you imagine a ball, so you have to see time as a ball. So now you're looking at three-dimensional time instead of two-dimensional time. But see, where Einstein made his mistake with time is that he would take that ball and then they would put this like kind of gridded plane down and show that ball like being a planet, and the ball was making an indentation in this XY axis, so to speak, and he was showing that the rotation of planets or bodies, you know, or whatever, molecular, you know, that they were caught in that the mass of that ball caused such and such an indentation that these other bodies were drawn down towards it. That was his visualization. And he called that space-time. Like he tied the two of them together, right? Hyphenate, right? But when the first time I saw that representation in school, I go, whoa, wait a second. A teacher it couldn't grasp this. Like it's nowhere. He'd never even thought of it. I can't believe it. I said, wait a second, man. I said, that's all well and good. Looking at this thing and watching some indent in it. I grasp that. Yeah, it's like a bowling ball on a mattress. If you put a cue ball next to it, it's going to be drawn towards the bowling ball because the bowling ball is heavy. Yeah, that makes sense. And the cue ball's lighter, but the bowling balls put this indentation into this mattress, and so the cue ball is going to be drawn towards it. Yeah, I understand that concept of mass, right? And you want to call it gravity and say it's drawn in, right? And the size, mass of a thing, increases the gravity of it. I said, the only problem with your drawing, though, with the XY axis and this indentation is that what's happening underneath the bulge? And the guy just looked at me. Never dawned on him. I said, you don't understand. Your model of gravity, your model, right, of space-time hyphenated together doesn't hold up, right? So the fourth dimension is clearly not hyphenated. It's not length, width, space-time, right? It's not a hyphenate time, right? You don't get it. Doesn't work.
The future. He came from the future.
You see, and that guy was dumbfounded. He literally had no answer. And the rest of the people in the room looked at me the way they always looked at me, because I was always the guy who was like, didn't have to study, whatever, just knew everything. So the fact of the matter is, and I'm not going to get into that. I did a show on that. I think I was clear on that. Maybe I'll do a show again and further explain that. The various dimensions. So, once you approach like a fifth dimension, right? Another little quick goofy aside. This is just a goofy aside. The band came out and they were called the Fifth Dimension, and their big hit song was The Age of Aquarius, right? And we're in the age of Aquarius, like we're entering the age of Aquarius. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Well, they were about 50 years too early on that. But yeah, that song is like, should be a hit today because it'd be more apropos. But the name of the band was the Fifth Dimension. Now it's pretty far out. Something to think about. Marilyn McCoo, she was pretty cute. But I don't even know if any of those people are still alive. I'm sure some of them are. But I really love to talk to them about that, or how that came about. I mean, that's pretty interesting. The Fifth Dimension, Age of Aquarius. Yeah. Fifth Dimension. But yeah, it's the year 2022, and so we don't understand any of this stuff, and everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know, and, we're approaching game over pretty much. It's like I said yesterday, there simply isn't enough time to fix the infrastructure in the U.S. We don't have enough time, speaking of time. And we certainly don't have the so-called manpower or workforce, I guess would be a more politically correct for you people that get some kind of problem with gender, right? We don't have the workforce, right? So, and certainly not considering that the infrastructure that was built out that made the country the way it is now was built with a workforce, of like large teams of people, right? Working ridiculously long hours doing something. Whereas opposed to today, and I have some pictures of it. I wish I should have, I wasn't thinking about it for today. But I have some pictures of some like these Department of Transportation guys putting down, they have this thing they do someplace. This damn chair, man. I'm going to try to fix it one more time with this thing. See if this will be the final time. But these guys were putting these stickers for a crosswalk to make a fake brick. You know how you have some, like in some nice areas, if you go up to Nantucket or something like that, they have the, or different places, you'll see like, you see cobblestone, old cobblestone roads, or you'll see crosswalks with bricks, and stuff like that. Well, they had these stickers, which reminded me of that car I was talking about where they were testing those surfaces, road surfaces. It all comes back full circle. And these guys were putting down these stickers across the road at the intersection to mimic as if it was a brick crosswalk. But really, it was just some kind of decal that was made. And it would wear out, because I've driven past the place. I've watched them. They've had to change that a couple of times. So they clearly, even the substance that was used by that was obviously planned obsolescence. They didn't put the stuff that was like those shoes I used to wear, or what these guys were testing when I was at college. And where a couple of the guys, the students, the PhD, candidates and stuff, were basically saying, man, you see that there and that there, that stuff, man, that just doesn't wear out. But they never used it on the roads and highways and stuff. Because they couldn't, They have this whole idea. Do you ever notice this idea? I've talked about this a couple of times, where they say this stuff like, well, it would, if you eliminated that, you would eliminate thousands of jobs. So we have to settle for inferior roads, inferior appliances, inferior technology, inferior health care, because it would eliminate jobs, right? So what? You close down some big giant cancer, industry and all these buildings and executive offices and stuff. Just give us the cure for frickin' cancer, man. And just have, a little storefront somewhere in each community that issues the pill. And maybe some, manufacturing plant out in the Midwest that basically, you got to do it that way. German engineered pill maker, right? It's the same with this thing that they just won't let go of. They won't let it in. Pfizer was supposed to give us a pill in January. What happened to it? Remember that in December? Pre-Christmas and all that stuff? Right? They were going to have this pill, this antiviral pill Pfizer had, and it was, I think they gave it emergency authorization use and something like that. Where is it? Where's the frickin' pill? It was supposed to work better than the thing. Oh, well, they still have too many doses of this crap laying around that they're making hundreds of billions of dollars on. So I don't know when they're going to put the pill out, or do they put the pill to bed, right? Did they get rid of the pill? I'm not the only one that saw that newscast on national TV, right? In fact, I think fucking, that fucking F guy, right? The effing liar, I think he was the guy who actually said that, right? The future that never came. And there's people out there thinking they're living in the future, but the problem is they're too young. They're too young to have experienced the past. They don't understand cycles. That's why I say it's like that climate. They just don't get it. You see, there's still snowbanks out there. That's how cold it's been. And we've had days where it rained for a day and a half. And the temperatures have gotten above freezing, but it's been so cold and it just kept snowing. There's 2 days this week it's supposed to snow. This is a good old-fashioned winter, man. But you live long enough, you see it. Live and learn. Cycles of life, man. So everything exists now, right? The present. And you have to live in the present. And you have to ignore all of the frickin' idiots. And you can't allow yourself. You have to understand that the media and the politicians are marionettes. They're puppets of the corporatocracy. And you're a puppet of that puppet if you sit around and watch them. If you ignore the media and politicians, they'll go away. And every time you support a political candidate, all right, that money goes to supporting the media and making the media pundits, the media talking heads, the announcers, the people who run the shows, the people you dislike, right? You're paying their salary. Because where would a political candidate's advertisement go that was pushing the ideology that you believe in? They would put those commercials on stations where they were hoping to change the mind of people that disagree with you. But the fact of the matter, when it comes to ideology, you can't change the ideology. That's like 1 in a million people would be that gullible, right? So what you're doing is you're paying the person that you dislike the most salary. And you're propping up the media that you wish would go away. And and politicians have no power whatsoever because the corporatocracy tells them what to do. There doesn't have to be a red wave or a blue wave or whatever. K Street's not going away, right? The lobbyists aren't going away. So who's the campaign contributions? They're marionettes and subject to that. So ultimately, everything's hypocrisy for profit. And you're falling hook, line, and sinker for that. And you have been year after year, election after election. And you're going to do it this year, too. And when you turn on these, like I say, I don't have TV anymore, but I watch some stuff on YouTube, obviously. And I watch these YouTube people. All they do is talk about politics. So they're caught up in it. They're, they're puppets of the puppets. And making a big stink about it. Like, in other words, it's the cult of personality. You're hoping that some person or persons are going to somehow lift you and make your life better, make you happier or happy, period. Well, how's that possible? Right? That means you have no free will whatsoever. You're not the master of your own destiny. You have no control over your own life. You need somebody in Washington. I say screw Washington, right? Ignore it. Anything that comes out of Washington or has anything to do with Washington, D.C., just ignore it. Ignore them. Move out of those areas. Move out of anything that has anything to do with that. I'm around, this place is technically a blue state where I'm at. Nobody in my neighborhood gives a flying fuck about anything. They don't care. The average American is not the way they're portrayed on TV. And if you don't know that, maybe you're too busy because you work or you watch too much TV or something. But in the real world, see, I live in the real world. Believe it or not. And real people, they aren't like the people portrayed on the news or on these, YouTube channels or the way the government pretends they are. In the real world, there's no divisiveness on the magnitude of what they're pretending there is. It's just not happening. It's not the way it is. In the real world, these groups are all fringe groups, right? They're fringe groups. Remember, the news is just content to fill the void between the commercials on television or YouTube, for that matter. You know? Because YouTube has commercials. Do you understand? Content. News is just content to fill the space between the advertisements, so the corporatocracy can enrich itself, and the people you disagree with can become even wealthier and more powerful. You are feeding the behemoth. You are feeding the machine. All right? You're feeding an international crime syndicate whose goal is to reduce your life expectancy and to manipulate and control every aspect of your life. You will own nothing and be happy, but they'll own everything. No one ever completes that question. 0.004 CO2 is going to destroy the planet. No, it isn't. Nothing's going to destroy the planet unless, the moon falls into it, or an asteroid hits us and breaks it in two. The planet's going to be here just fine. The more CO2, the better as far as the planet's concerned, because the trees love it. Right? People are such idiots. They don't think it. Think about it. They don't think anything through. It's like that Einstein, concept, gravity. It's like, yeah, it works one way, but it doesn't. What's that bulge on the bottom? I don't see any cute, you're talking about anti-gravity now. If you're going to attract something, seems to me that maybe magnetism is what it's really all about, but that's a whole different story. That's what holds your body together. Magnetism. Electromagnetic forces. The bioelectric brain. You're basically just an android. You're a machine. You're a machine. You're a very sophisticated machine. People are just, you don't get it. Yeah, I don't know, man. When I see this stuff, I think,
The future. He came from the future.
he came from the future, man.
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
No, it isn't, man. It's just the way it is. It's daylight out there. 7:03 a.m. Man, the sun's rising early. Just a short while ago, sunrise was like at 7:30 or 7:27. Now it's like, it's morning. Like Cat Stevens. Morning has broken like the first morning. Teacher's pet is the next line in that song.
Really funny. Really funny.
Yeah, we just have to do that for the sake of it, no reason whatsoever. That's my porch. There's my little wicker chair. 2 wicker chairs out there on that porch. Looking out over a street where the speed limit is 25 miles an hour, but none of those cars are going 25 miles an hour, man. And the cops don't give a shit. I've never seen anybody stop and get a speeding ticket there. And those trucks, I've seen those trucks go 60 miles an hour, man. I was tempted at one point before I retired, when I had extra money coming in, I was tempted to get myself one of them there radar guns like the state police have, just to frickin' record it. And then I was going to send it down to the City Hall and say, hey, these guys are destroying my frickin' house. Do something about it. They don't care. It's like in some areas, they're more concerned about, the goofiest crap. I was just messing with this thing. This is going to be the last attempt at fixing this chair. The very last attempt. So, check. I just realized it's like I was getting, and I had this coffee mug thing on. It must have been putting an extra noise in my earphone. Well, it's back again. It's like a little hiss. There's something somewhere that gives just a little subtle hiss in my headphones. It's not really disturbing. Anyway, yeah, that's the thing, man. So, I don't know. The future that never came, right? We're being deceived and manipulated at every step. Everything you know is wrong. And the odd thing about it is nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care. Why is that? Right? Why is that? I mean, I'm not saying there's much you can do about it. Remember I told you, change, the only way to affect positive change is to do nothing. Right? So that's the secret. See, if you want to end this fraudulent political system and you want to see, you're tired of this media controlling and doing these, putting so much pressure and all, on every aspect of your life. Well, the thing is, you pull the plug of the media. In other words, you do nothing. You don't watch. If you want to reduce the popularity of a politician, well, you don't vote for them, and if they're speaking, you don't watch their speech. And you'll say, well, then the other side will win. Not really. Not really. No, because you ignore whomever's speaking. You just ignore them. Their power, you are giving them the power. See? That's the thing. Every time you turn on a television station, you're giving them ratings and you're increasing the value of their advertisements, right? Their commercial value, and the announcers are making more money. And every time you watch a politician, their, poll numbers go up in effect, right? Just ignore them. They become powerless, and don't pay attention to any of the shit they say, right? Because they don't know what they're talking about. They're just people who, before they were elected, right, were just like you. Now suddenly you're bowing down your head to them. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, the school buses are out there.
Good morning.
Yeah, well, thanks for watching. I'm done. Keep these shows a little bit shorter these days. Don't forget to visit my site, ROCKFLUX.com, TonyCaravanLive.com. For some reason, they cut me off of here. I'll probably be broadcasting on Rumble or one of those places. Get my book. Go to Great Solar Stuff and all that stuff. Get yourself a shirt, hoodie, hat, ROCKFLUX sticker. Spread the word. Share the video. Like it. Subscribe. All that neat stuff. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow.